Hi, Kathy. How are you? It's so good to see you.
I'm great. Can't complain.
So tell me before we get into it, tell me a little bit about yourself.
So today's actually my birthday. I'm turning 67 years young. I got diagnosed with breast cancer back in 2002. I had a normal mammogram, and then I had gone to my doctor for a checkup 2 weeks after the mammogram. Nothing was showing on the mammogram. Everything looked great. But at my office visit, the doctor found a pea-sized lump in my left breast. Tried to aspirate it in the office, but he couldn't. And his parting words to me were 99.9% of the time, it's benign, nothing to worry about. So I followed through with a general surgeon. He actually did all types of surgeries, not specifically breast cancer. Had the surgery on June 20th, which was my original wedding date, anniversary date. So I thought that would be good news. Turned out not so much. So I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Stage one, my tumor was 1.4 centimeters. So I followed up with surgery in August and had a second lumpectomy plus a sentinel node biopsy. Fortunately, all my nodes were negative. So I started with radiation and oncology. I was told by my oncologist that it was caught so early, I didn't have to do any other type of treatments. My estrogen receptors were positive, so that was good as far as putting me on medications. So I elected to have radiation first, which was kind of the opposite. So I had 7.5 weeks of radiation in a New Jersey hospital in Virtua. Then I went to University of Penn with Dr. Fox for my oncology, who was amazing. I had AC chemo.
Mhm. Yeah,
When
nowadays we do the chemo first, so it's interesting that you had the radiation first at the time.
and I think now you monitor the tumor, right, to see if it grows or not before you treat.
In some cases, so if it's a certain subtype or if it's bigger, has positive lymph nodes, sometimes we may choose to do kind of chemotherapy first, which is called neoadjuvant therapy, which does allow us to monitor the size of it. And then there are still some cases where we do surgery first and then do adjuvant therapy. So it's really nuanced and individualized based on multitude of factors.
Yeah, it was very interesting because when I had my first appointment with the oncologist, I said, what do I have to do? And he said, you don't have to do anything. It's a personal choice. He said, if it was my daughter, I'll never forget. If it was my daughter, she would run naked down Broad Street and do whatever it takes to get rid of this cancer. If it was my wife, she is not losing her eyebrows. She's not losing her hair. She's not going to do any other treatment. She's just going to cross her fingers. So I thought, I think I'll just do radiation and forget the chemo. And when I got home, Jen and Kelly, my daughters, ran out of the house and said, Mom, when do you start your treatments? And I can't, I have to do everything at my disposal to be here for them. And I said, well, I'm going to give them a call back and start. So I didn't realize it was a personal choice. And for each therapy that I did, my recurrence issue should have been lessened, which it has. I'm
Mhm.
22 years out now. So
That's incredible. And talk a little bit about, I think it's really encouraging sometimes, always really for patients who are newly diagnosed or in the middle of chemo, radiation, starting medications, and it's hard to see that future, right? It's hard to see 20 plus years forward. What have these 22 plus years been like in terms of having that diagnosis and how it may have changed your life going forward?
I think I have to say, when I was in active treatment, going to my chemo and my radiation, and then taking tamoxifen afterwards, it was such a momentum. Okay, I'm fighting this thing, right? I'm fighting back because I didn't feel sick. I got sick from the chemo, obviously. But when my chemo and radiation were done, it was like I fell off the edge of a cliff. It's like, oh my God, now what do I do? The doctor doesn't want to see me for 6 months. I was going to the doctor every week. So the adjustment of what they call the new normal was kind of traumatic for me. I was like, how do I go about my day? I was wearing the breast cancer pins and wearing a lot of pink, and it's my hair was growing back in after chemo. And it's like, That was the toughest thing for me to navigate. Like I needed to find a path to get back. I immediately joined from my local hospital a Pink Ribbon Poetry Group, which was a breast cancer support group, and we wrote poetry. Very, very healing. I wrote these, these how I was feeling when I was going through the chemo treatments and how people would say, "Oh my God, you look great. Oh, how are you doing?" And you would answer back, "I'm doing well." But inside, you're like, "I have this drug thrusting through my veins. I feel like I'm going to get sick." And it was so healing to write down on paper, yeah, my emotions of what I was feeling. During that time, another woman kept coming and dropping off postcards telling us about a local dragon boat team. I didn't even know what a dragon boat was, but I ended up joining, and I've been on it for 20 plus years. Hope Afloat,
Hmm.
which is based on the Schuylkill River in Philadelphia. There are dragon boat breast cancer survivor teams all around the United States and the world, actually. So I went down to the river and I tried it about 3 times. And being out in the middle of the Schuylkill River with no cell phones, nobody calling me, nobody bother me, and finally having time to think about myself
Hmm.
and doing something that was mentally and physically good for me was so healing. And that really started my journey after breast cancer diagnosis. And I've met a lot of women who either take up painting, they do a triathlon or a marathon. They do things they never thought they'd do prior to their diagnosis. And meeting these other women on the team, we have one thing in common, the breast cancer diagnosis. And in a million years, I never would be in the same room with those people. I never would have met them. And I have so many amazing friends through the group that I joined. So I just want people to know there's such a great afterlife. And you don't take days for granted like you used to.
Hmm.
In the beginning, when I got the diagnosis, I didn't know how big the tumor was. I didn't know what my prognosis was. You really weigh out your life decisions and really think about, hey, am I going to be here for my kids or potentially grandkids? Or, what does this mean for me? And it's very traumatizing in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things I hear often from patients is it can be scary after active treatment to start thinking about that healing process and thinking about maybe doing something that you're not as comfortable with or feels new to you, right? And this was very new for you. So, what advice do you have for someone who's afraid to maybe try something new as a way to start processing and coping through what has happened?
I think just put yourself out there. There's so many resources for us now. I see you're on the board of LBBC,
Mm-hmm.
Living Beyond Breast Cancer, and there's so many type of support groups for women. Find one that works for you. You don't have to be an athlete and be in the boat like I am. You can join a poetry support group. You could just join your local hospital support group. There's different meetups through the library. Do you like knitting? Take a knitting class.
Mm-hmm.
Just put yourself out there in the community and just kind of find what's important to you. Take a painting class, take a pottery class, do something that you've thought about. Wow, I really would like to be an artist or whatever. There's kind of no rules now, there's no parameters. And then if it feels good, continue to do it. But I really think getting back to your daily routine as I'm getting older too, I think routine is very important to our
Mm-hmm.
health and keeping us healthy. We have an aunt that just turned 95. She's in 3 different choirs and she sings, she's active in the church, and she just never stops. And I believe it's because of all the groups that she's
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
connecting with other people. I think that's the main thing that I've learned from this. I've I've found that some survivors are very closed about it. They don't want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
They're healing maybe from the inside out, and that's fine. For me, if somebody asked me and really wanted to hear about my experience and how I was feeling, I would tell them. And to me, that was healing. So I think you have to find your comfort level,
Mm-hmm.
what really works for you. as far as sharing your experience. And then I think the rest will come.
Yeah. And tell us, let's talk about dragon boating. I mean, I want to hear all about it. Tell us all the details.
So it's a 40-foot long, basically canoe.
Hmm.
And there's teams, there's three different breast cancer teams in Philadelphia. They're in Florida, Vermont, all around the United States. We train 2 or 3 days a week. And when I first joined, we would go to different festivals. You train and you practice, and then you compete in festivals. 250-meter race, 500-meter race, or we do 2,000-meter races too now, which is really fun. And we have a race in Princeton, which is not too far from TCNJ. That's
Hmm.
just beautiful on Lake
Yeah.
Mercer. So we practice, our season's just starting up April 1st till October 1st. And then in the off season, we actually work out in the gym. So compared to when I started years ago, it was like, oh, here come the little breast cancer teams. Oh, good for them.
Hmm.
Well, now we're just as competitive as the other teams. There are youth dragon boat teams, all men teams, just women teams, mixed teams. There's teams that are 50 and over, 60 and over, 70 and over, and everyone competes throughout the United States.
And
Every 4 years, we have an Olympics, and we compete against breast cancer survivors from around the world. So I'm heading to France in August to compete in the participatory Dragon Boat Festival. And they always change. I've been to Australia with Jen and Kelly, my daughters.
Mhm.
We've been to Italy, Sarasota, Florida, and to have all these women that have the same bond of breast cancer and see how we're all surviving and doing well is just it's just overwhelming and inspiring.
That's really incredible. And so how many people are in a boat?
So the boat accommodates 20 people. So
Hmm.
there's 10 people. Well, there's two people on each seat. You either
Okay.
sit left or sit right. We're considered paddlers, not rowers.
Hmm.
And we actually paddle going forward. Like the sculls, they row, but they're going backwards.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. And then in terms of
And
your, go ahead.
sorry, then we have someone that sits in the very front and they're the drummer. And every time they beat the drum is when we stroke in the water.
Okay.
And then there's a person in the back that's a steerer with a very big, long steering oar. They're responsible for making sure that we go straight, we're not hitting any debris. They're very, very important job that they have being a steer in the back of the boat. And it's very important that obviously you all stroke at the same time and stay in
Mhm.
synchronization.
So your practices are on the water.
Yes.
Yeah. And then is it that practicing of that synchronization?
Yeah, so we have like an hour and a half practice every Monday and Thursday night on the water, and our
Mhm.
coach is in the boat. We also have a short boat, which seats 10 paddlers and a drummer steer, as opposed to the large boat. So we'll take out the long boat and the short boat, and the coach will yell commands. We do different drills to get our timing right. And it's basically you're paddling from your core. Like it
Mhm.
really is, you're reaching and you're digging down, but
Yeah.
it's all rear core muscles and you're pushing off with your feet. So really from head to toe, if you just sat there and used like canoe stroked, we call it, you'd be exhausted. You couldn't go 500 meters without, losing energy. So, and it depends on your size and your strength where you sit in the boat.
Okay.
The two in the front are called the stroke pair. They're usually a smaller pair because the boat does narrow in the front and the back like a canoe. So you couldn't have two larger people in the front of the boat. So one, two, and three are the beginning of the boat, and then from 5 to 7 are what we call the engine room. And those are the bigger, stronger paddlers that really are the power or the engine of the boat. And then again, in the back, we have some smaller people in like 8, 9, and 10.
And the competitions or exhibitions, but is it both speed and synchronization?
Yeah, so usually when you race, you'll race 3 times. And the first race, there'll be, I don't know, anywhere from 2 to 5 boats.
Hmm.
It's just for time. So
Okay.
whoever has the best time, then they put you into divisions, division A, B, and C. And then as you race throughout the day, you're racing people that had similar times as you. Our team, we try to race against only breast cancer survivors, but sometimes we do race against women's teams as well. So it is basically about, yes, staying in synchronization, but making sure you're pulling enough water and you're bearing your paddle. And there's, even as long as I've been paddling, there's still so much to learn. Um, Always improving.
Well, and I think what's wonderful about it is both the mental and the physical health aspects. And we know exercise is so important in after treatment and helps with side effects and reduces recurrence risk, but the mental health benefits of it as well. And I imagine that it's probably really good for upper body and lymphedema management and things like that because you're moving, but you're not necessarily doing anything that would increase the risk of lymphedema or swelling.
Right. So I don't know if you know Dr. Don McKenzie. He's the one that started the program in Canada. I want to say about 25 years ago. And after people got a breast cancer diagnosis, especially if they lost some of their lymph nodes, they said, you go home and rest. And the women weren't getting any better and
Yeah.
they weren't active. And he said, I have an idea. I really think that they need to be physically active, to your point, and I really think that would help. So he kind of did like a test for like the first couple of years. And these women, the recurrence rate went down lower, their overall health got better. And so he started it in Canada and then it spread throughout the United States. So you're right. In the beginning, years ago, they were like, oh no, you can't exercise. It's going to hurt your lymphedema. And we have a lot of women that have limitations. They wear their sleeves when they're paddling. They can only
Hmm.
paddle left or they can only paddle right, depending. I'm considered bisexual. I can paddle either side.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, I've broken my elbows like 5 times and my
Oh no.
wrist and my thumb, and I've had a lot of breaks over the years. But the paddling has certainly helped me improve my bone strength for sure.
Yeah, I think bone health is one of the things that really gets affected after diagnosis and treatment, depending on what treatment you have. And I see so much osteopenia and osteoporosis and activity and weight bearing activity is very powerful, especially I'm sure that helps with the how heavy are these paddles?
Oh, they're very light. When I started,
Okay.
they were wooden paddles. Now they're carbon fiber. They
Okay.
don't know the weight, but they're very light.
So they're not like a really heavy oar
No,
that
they're not like
you're
an oar. The
okay,
steering
okay.
oar is, but
Yeah.
they're standing and they have two hands. So
Mhm. So you said you've been to Australia, you're going to France, anywhere, what like top destination, what's really cool about those places?
so I went to Italy in 2017 with the family and actually brought my two stepdaughters, my daughters, and all their significant others. And it was a family vacation and then the festival. But the best part of it is, like I said, meeting women from all around the world, Guam and Japan and China. And we have, if you notice, I have carnations in the back of my background. We do what we call a pink carnation ceremony at our festivals. And over the years, obviously, we're breast cancer survivors. We've lost a lot of our members. We've buried some members. So you form a bond with them, and when we lose them, it's tough. So each year at the festivals, they'll sing a song or they'll read a poem, and we all are given a pink carnation, and all the boats line up in the festival, and we raise our pink carnations and we throw them out and call out the names of our teammates that have passed. And it's just so emotional and so healing. And we paddle for those that aren't here anymore, that have paddled or we wish could be paddling with us. So we don't forget the people that have lost the fight.
Mhm.
And I think it just gives us that much more ambition to do our best for them in their memory. Um, when I first started competing, it's like, yeah, you want to win, you want to win. And it's kind of like, I feel like it's like the Eagles or a football team. When you're off the field, you see them, pounding around with each other and talking
Mhm.
and laughing. But when you're in that boat, they're your competition and you're going to beat them.
Yeah.
But when you get on land, it's a different story. But I joined in 2006, and in 2007 was our first international race, and we went to Australia. And they gifted us all these uh, chairs, like pink chairs that you could, folding chairs and all that kind of stuff. So we all put our names on the back. And then we realized, how are we going to pack them in our luggage to bring them home?
Yeah.
So we left them behind. And then fast forward to when we were in Italy, and this one lady said, "Oh, I have a chair that says Sheila on it and Hope Afloat." And I I had tears welled up in my eyes. I said, we just lost Sheila. She died like 6 months ago, and we named our boat after her. And she said, why will cherish that chair even more now. So that's what it's about to me, making connections with people and remembering. And and now I'm just so thankful for all the oncologists that I have in my life that have, got me this far.
Yeah, it's really, I was going to ask, and you brought it up because I'm sure, how does the carnation ceremony is beautiful, but how does it impact the morale kind of on a day-to-day basis, right? When someone is with you and now no longer with you and you're used to seeing that person. I imagine it's challenging on many levels.
It is the first, we have like 2 or 3 good years, I'd say, where everyone seems to stay healthy.
Mhm.
And when people enter our team, they're in all different stages of
Yeah.
treatment. And some of them are still in active treatment, which I don't know how the heck they do it. But I can remember calling Jen on the phone and crying and being upset. And I said, I can't believe Sonia's gone. She died. And she said, Mom, what were you expecting? You're on a team of breast cancer survivors. Did you not know this was going to happen? And I think in my heart of hearts, I thought, no, we're all safe together because we have this unit. So it is, there are highs and lows, and it is tough. But like I said, I think forming these friendships, and then when you lose someone, I've been alive for 67 years now. And it's funny, it's like some weeks it's like, wow, 12 people I know had birthdays this week. But I
Mhm.
realized I've met so many people and made so many friends through work and, different connections over the years that I know more people.
Yeah.
So, and I am the firmest believer in someone comes into your life for a reason. It could be for a short time, it could be for a longer amount of time, but I think they all have an effect on our lives, and that's absolutely wonderful. And certainly they will never be forgotten. There's a woman on our team that lost her husband a couple years ago, and then one of our teammates, Candy, that passed away. So her and Candy's husband are actually a couple now
Oh,
because they would go out to lunch and she knew Candy and was best friends with Candy and she knew her husband and he was lonely. And so I think after cancer as well, different people make connections
yeah.
because again, they have that thing in common, either if you're a caretaker for someone
Mhm.
or you're a survivor. And I have to say, I think sometimes being a caretaker is harder, so much harder.
Yeah.
You don't know what the patient needs at a certain time. And sometimes the patient doesn't really know what they need, right? I'm sure you see that.
Yeah.
Um, a good friend of mine was going through her treatments, and she would get very, very sick from her chemo. And she said she was at home in the bathroom throwing up her guts, and her husband was in the other room on the phone. And he said, Eileen's doing great. Oh my gosh, you should see her. She's such a trooper, and she does her chemo, and oh, everything's going to be great. And she said, I was so angry. And when he hung up the phone, I said to him, what house do you live in? Did you not hear me in the bathroom? Do you not know how much I'm suffering? And he said, if I thought for 1 minute I was going to lose you, I couldn't survive. This is my coping mechanism to tell myself and tell my friends that you're doing fine.
Mhm.
So I think everyone, as you know, has their own coping
Yeah.
mechanisms. And I heard the analogy that when you're going through cancer, your family goes through it with you. You're not alone. But
Mhm.
it's like a roller coaster. And some days you're like, hey, I'm doing okay. I'm going to be great. And they're at the bottom of the roller coaster. And then you kind of switch spots.
Mhm.
When you're down and all your family's like, it's okay. You're going to do great. So I think that's okay. We don't all have to be at the top of the roller coaster on the same day.
Yeah, I like that analogy a lot. I think one of the challenges, and I hear this often, is someone will finish active treatment and, people say, you're done, right? And then they don't feel anything but done because they still have side effects and medications and, mental health impacts and all of that. And I think part of that is how the caregivers are also coping, right? Because they need
Mm,
you to be okay. And so this is their way of saying, you're okay, right? Because it reassures them. And I think there is a little bit, as you pointed out, that everyone comes at it with different perspectives and different fears and different coping mechanisms. And I think it can be hard to talk about what you're feeling and to also meet in the middle because everyone does have different ways of processing really hard and scary information and news and all of that.
Yeah, I got remarried 14 years ago. When I Shortly after I got my diagnosis, I ended up going through a nasty separation and divorce. And this is a horrible thing to say, but breast cancer saved my life because I think I still would have been in a very toxic relationship. I just didn't know how to get out. And when I was done all my cancer treatments and things were not improving, I'm like, I can't continue to do this. So I kind of, it helped me realize my life's too important to continue in this cycle.
Yeah.
And when I met and had a new relationship, that was one of my fears. I said, I have breast cancer. I could be gone tomorrow. I could get a recurrence. Like, how do you have a new relationship with someone? Is
Yeah.
that fair? And he's like, I love you and who you are, and we'll fight it together. Whatever happens together, we're in it together. And I have not had a recurrence. But yes, that's another fear. It's like, I know people who've had it two, three, four times.
Mm-hmm. And
So
and it's hard. I think it is hard what you said, moving, figuring out what the next decade, 2 decades, three, etc. looks like when you have those fears. And I love what you said about people in your life for a certain period of time. And I think sometimes there is this fear of moving forward and maybe the
mhm,
people and bringing in new people and building a new community that is now helpful, right? Because sometimes you do have to let go of people who were in your past.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And there are wonderful support groups out there, like I said, and I think that's the good thing now. And they're not limited just to breast cancer. There's so many different resources for women. Um, so thanks to you for LBBC and all the other things that you support, because we do fundraisers because our team, we support ourselves. We're a 501(c)(3). So we'll do like a pink walk every year in October, which is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we walk in Philly and we have signs, get your mammograms, check your boobies, that kind of thing, all positive, and have door prizes and things like that. And then we'll have like a wine and cheese night, and it the people that come to the events are like, oh my God, you ladies, like you know how to have a good time. You're also upbeat. You're all there to help each other. They see the support in the community, and it's just it spreads. It definitely spreads. It's like dominoes. And then everyone knows we'll have emails once a week. Oh, my friend, has this type of cancer, or she's going to have a mastectomy. Is there any doctor you could recommend? And everyone's there to help each other. And it's such a nice, safe group. Um, and I just think there's healing in having someone that's been down the same road that you have,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, 100%. And there are so many communities. I think there are so many wonderful organizations that are supporting each other, supporting research, physical activity, whatever that looks like, but finding a community. And I see that there is a lot of fear in kind of entering that
Mm.
community. I do think that some people are maybe more resilient, not reserved or more private and worry about, or they don't want to kind of keep cancer in the forefront. But I think it's so helpful for so many people to have that space where you can be yourself.
And to your point, the life after cancer, um, an ex-friend of mine, I will say now, who I realized was pretty toxic, was like, you know, you're better. Like your treatments are
Mhm.
over. Why are you still talking about cancer? Why, like move on. It's
Mhm.
like, okay, my body, my mind, we're moving on, but I'm not gonna forget that. It's not like I had a cold or a flu and I'm better and I'm moving on. The cancer is part of my health history now. Like you said, I've had osteopenia, I've had osteoporosis. It's still in my system
Yep.
as far as I'm
Mhm.
concerned. When I was done my chemo, I had heart palpitations. Did the heart catheterization, and they found out they were of the normal kind. So I'll be on Toprol probably the rest of my life. So my blood pressure is usually on the low side. But it's like I can't. move on from cancer. I can't forget it ever happened. I don't think
Mhm.
that's healthy either.
Yeah. Mhm.
But like I said, I think everyone's at a different stage where maybe they don't want to talk about it at lunchtime or to
Yeah.
someone else. And that's totally acceptable. That's totally fine. It's whatever your comfort level is. I think you just need to find your way through it.
Mhm.
And yes, it's scary. It's going to be a little scary, but life is scary. Life throws things at you that you never saw coming. And when I first got diagnosed, my mom, my I guess she was about my age. She was like in her late 50s or 60s. And she said, "Oh, I don't want to tell anybody you have breast cancer." I got very offended. And I said, "Mom, you could put a billboard on Route 73 and tell people, like, I'm not like an alcoholic and I chose to drink and did this to myself. I don't know what caused it. And if I did, I wouldn't have done it." And I realized for her generation, if you had the C diagnosis, that was a death sentence. So she was scared for me. And then over time, she'd say, "Oh, so and so's sister has it. So and so,
Mhm.
mother has it, whatever." And she realized that it was more prevalent than she originally thought because it wasn't really in our wheelhouse, I guess, in the beginning.
Well, and back then, I mean, I credit social media to a lot of this, but like no one was talking, people were whispering and it wasn't something that was talked about. I mean, my grandmother had ovarian cancer and died when I was sort of just graduated college and started medical school, and she passed away. But it was still so hush hush at that point. Like we
Mhm.
just were, my mom was like, "Don't tell too many people, we don't want everyone to know." And now I think there is, I mean, now really people are so open about it, which I think is really important because if we don't talk about it, then all of these things keep getting perpetuated, right? Oh, you're done with it. What are you still talking about it? Why do you need to do this, right? And so I think having those conversations, encouraging advocacy, encouraging screening, all of that, finding that community, survivorship, that comes from people being open and being willing to be vulnerable and share their stories. But
Yeah.
20 years ago, I mean, that was not really happening.
Yeah. And then I have the two daughters, and I was worried about how my history would affect them. So I did have the first set of genetic testing done, and I didn't have any markers. So I was like, great. And because my maternal grandmother and my mom had it. So I'm third generation. So
Mhm.
I kind of let it go for a couple of years. And then Jen had gone to the gynecologist, and she's like, your mom really needs to do the second set of testing. Like you could still have a different type of marker.
Mhm.
So I guess about 5 or 6 years ago, I did, and I don't have anything. They tested me for all kinds of cancer. I don't have any markers at all. So I say it stops with me. That's it. We're done. Um, but and initially, when I had heard about the second round of testing, the doctor said, to be quite honest, we don't know what to do with those results yet,
Yeah.
even if you get it done. So to your point, the social media and of course, as you know, the medical treatments have evolved so rapidly,
Mhm.
um, that someone has said, if you get a breast cancer diagnosis today, it's not the same as when I got it
Yeah.
back in 2002. There's so many more treatments and so many different ways of looking at it and tracking the tumor and all that good stuff. So we're just making strides,
Yeah.
you know,
But
hand
I
over
think
fist.
we are. And I mean, the progress has been incredible. But I always caution people to think, what is making sure, especially for people's daughters, as they're
Mhm.
growing up, what are people's breast cancer risks? If you have a family history, we consider you to be at higher risk, right? And so what do we do for imaging and screening? And I think it's so important that we have those conversations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So if someone wants to go dragon boating, what do they do? How do they connect with you? Where do they show up? Give us all the
Well, if
information.
you live in the Philadelphia area, you should definitely join Hope Afloat USA. You can look it up. We have a website and we have a Facebook site. You would just do breast cancer survivor teams in my area.
Hmm.
And like I said, they're all around the United States. I don't know how far reaching your audience is, but they're in Maine, they're in Vermont, any place that has a body of water, basically.
Yeah, so everywhere.
Um,
We love it.
yeah, absolutely. And it's like I said, it's good, friendly, fun competition. It really is. And the most important thing to me is saying, can't wait to go to Pittsburgh to see my friend Mary that lives in Pittsburgh on the team. And you just form these, just connections with other people. And I think that is really what helps us the most. Um, Yeah,
And I
forming connection.
exactly, and I think even if maybe you're not hopping into a dragon boat tomorrow, I hope what people take from this is the importance of connection and community and finding your people, right? People that you can talk to that understand it. And I always think movement is such a healing way, whatever that movement looks like, if you can do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm sure there's, even just gyms, local gyms you can join.
Yeah.
Um, and they probably there's a lot of, like you said, upper body. The weight training is very, very good for you. We actually, some of the women on our team are called Why Not Warriors, and they compete in weightlifting competitions on the weekend. They are 70 plus and 80 plus, and they unbelievable bone strength, but they keep breaking records because there's nobody against them to compete.
I love it.
And but to their own right, they're doing amazing
Yeah.
lifting things that they never would have thought before. So it's also an avenue that if you didn't like the Dragon Boat, you would meet other people and maybe say, "Oh, I'm going to try this next," you know?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
and all shapes and sizes, all stages of diagnosis and treatments are welcome. Um,
Well, wonderful. And if anyone wants to connect with you directly, is there a way for them to do that?
yeah, so I live in Pennsylvania now, but I'm still a Jersey girl at heart. So my email is JG for Jersey Girl Paddler, PADDLER @gmail.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it was wonderful to see you again.
Thank you. Same here.